On this episode of the Soul Twin Stars podcast,
we are stuck on a planet or a realm, and we do not have the answers fully.
Because so many people are going through this right now. Limiting belief systems.
And I thought, this isn't worth it for some hot sex. This is so stupid. I did this on and off for 4 years.
But now that you're an adult, your healing is your responsibility.
That looping behavior, you can stop it.
Hi, I'm Lady Shadowe, a witch with much to share, stirring the cauldron with magical self-care.
Hi, I'm Peaceful Nik, a medium divine. I chat with the dead and interpret every sign.
We are Soul Twin Stars, best friends through it all.
From spells to healing, we're answering the call.
From moon cycles to menopause and making peace with the dead.
We aren't afraid to talk about what's rarely said.
So tune in each week to get raw, real, and wise.
Let's talk about a spiritual life with absolutely no disguise. Welcome to the Soul Twin Stars podcast, Uninhibited Spirituality. We'd like to first thank this week's episode sponsors, Beans and Buttercream Bakery. They ship the most delicious baked goods anywhere. Follow them on their Facebook page, Beans and Buttercream Bakery. Also, Abernathy Photography, serving Western Kentucky and beyond, specializing in digital photography, weddings, and so much more. They now also feature drone photography. You can book them at abernathyphotography.com. And lastly, if you find yourself in Westchester County, New York, just north of New York City, Fino Restaurant in Croton-on-Hudson, New York, serves the most delicious, authentic Italian food. That's Fino Restaurant, Fino. And now, back to our episode.
Hello, and welcome back to the Soul Twin Stars podcast. I'm Peaceful Nik, the medium, joined by the ever wonderful Lady Shadowe. How are you, Lady Shadowe?
The ever wonderful, peaceful Nik. I am wonderful. How are you, darling?
I am grateful. I am grateful to have a full calendar. I am grateful to have love in my life. I'm grateful to have best friends and family and just beauty. Beauty. And I want to say one little mini divine moment. My husband was just complimenting me for always noticing the beauty of the sky, because I have an unhealthy amount of pictures of the sun, moon, and stars.
I know, it's cute though.
and he said, I really appreciate that you take the time to notice those small moments. So that's my mini divine moment for today. How are you doing in the snow?
Well, you should paint one of those cloud sky murals on your ceiling. That would be cool, right?
That would. If I ever had enough time to commit to that.
Yeah.
Just
dropping that in just in case.
That would be wonderful.
Project. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I love painting clouds. I have 1 million cloud paintings. So.
I know. Yeah. And you would do such a great job. And I know that you've done realistic murals before, but could you imagine just looking up at that every day in case it was?
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. I'll put that in my memory bank.
In your creative queue, like I have.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we just had a serious snowstorm. Y'all probably heard about the crazy blizzard that we got here a few days ago, which is today. But it is a wild one. We didn't have the wind that they said we were going to get, but we have about 18 inches again out there. Husband has been out there for hours trying to get the car dug out and all of that for tomorrow's ice skating session. And then I also have other awesome things I'm doing this week, but I have a quick divine moment too. There's always a divine moment floating around. If you can't find a divine moment after a few days that go by, then we have to reevaluate kind of where we are in our lives, I think.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it's important to create them.
Yes.
For me, it would be that first of all, I just got back from this trip and I'm still on the high of that. But secondarily, having been working on this next play that I'm writing called The Offer, it has taken me into a really empowering place, even though it's a psychological thriller, but it's taking me to a very empowered place in just the way you and I talk all the time, living our best authentic life and putting our art into something creative that comes from places that we need to express ourselves, right? Whether it's pain, laughter, confusion, frustration, I try to channel all of that into my art. So this new play is carrying a lot of that weight, and it's coming out really great. So I'm excited to finish that in the next couple of weeks and get that on a stage April 13th in New York City with the Backdoor to Broadway Festival that I am hosting, which is so exciting. So that is a really beautiful project that I'm developing up here and keeps me occupied, much like all of your awesome projects, your teaching, your readings, you're continuing to inspire the world. So listen, all we can do is do what we do, right?
Right, exactly. And I love that you have all those creative projects going, especially that now that you're buried under snow. It's good to have things to do because people get real depressed when they're locked in their house. Imagine if you're somebody who had to work outside the house and you were locked in the house with 5 kids or something, right? Like that would be really hard to deal with. My divine moment, my normal big divine moment for the week is I was the guest medium on Helping Parents Heal and gave a bunch of really wonderful messages and readings to a group of people. And if anybody is struggling with the loss of a child, Helping Parents Heal has a lot of resources at helpingparentsheal.org. That's the organization I got certified through, along with Mark Ireland. So if you or someone you know is struggling with the loss of a child, I think they also have a sibling loss section as well. So it was wonderful. It was my first gallery for them. The ladies that hosted, moderated, were wonderful and kind and patient because I was new to their platform. And it was just, I was so honored to complete that gallery. And then I will have more in the future, which I will announce on my social media.
Very cool. Very cool. Everybody follow Nik, watch her stuff on YouTube when she goes live, when she interviews people, when we do our podcast. There is an enormous amount of amazing content. It's funny because I was re-logging into my big TV on my smart TV again, my YouTube account, because Chris and I switch accounts all the time, and the first thing that comes up is your channel and my channel, so I get to see all of the videos that you uploaded in the last 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see that one. Oh, that one's cool. And so you were on our big screen the other night. It was amazing.
That's so sweet. I love it. Yeah, I do put out a good bit of content.
Yeah.
Probably I have a lot of responsibilities from May to August that are science responsibilities outside of my mediumship. So my content uploads probably be a little less over, the summer especially. But, in the fall, I'll hopefully return to normal uploading. But I'm grateful for every single view and every like and every share and every subscribe. And I'm grateful to be able to make my own schedule, inspired by the lovely Lady Shadowe, who's been telling me this for decades. To be able to make my own schedule and essentially, for the most part, and be free of the corporate stranglehold.
Oh my God. When you were thinking for the word, I was thinking stronghold. So we had it right there together. Psychic link.
Yes, exactly. So tonight we're talking about free will, fate, and false freedom. Speaking of the corporate stranglehold, what say you, Lady Shadowe, on this subject?
This subject is near and dear to me because I am one of those people that perpetually questions what this world is, why we're here, what the reason is that we're here. And I'm constantly challenging the theology around not just the religious doctrine around why we're here, but I'm also questioning the logical reason why we're here, right? And you often get even people who are more agnostic or atheist they may not be able to name a God or put any faith into a creator whatsoever. But I think even with somebody who's harsh on the no creator, we're just here randomly on accident, can still debate slightly, whether or not it even makes sense to be here, and how our bodies work and how our consciousness works. And just by asking the questions about why we're here and looking around the environment and the connections that we make. And if you've ever been in love, like that's enough to ask, right? Where we came from and how we were created. And so if you take the religiousness out of the equation, right, and you strip it down to, okay, there are these beings who, if you're born in certain parts of the world, you're going to have more freedoms than others. If you were born under a certain regime, right, you're going to have less freedom than another person, sadly. So there's this inequality that happens geographically, right? And we don't know if it's luck of the draw or if it's a soul contract or a choice or whatever.
Right.
But the religious front likes to say, well, our God is a loving and humble God, and he wants us to find him on our own through suffering.
AKA him,
right? Through our suffering, and choose him despite that, and that we need to suffer in order to know God, and all of this fucking bullshit, quite frankly. Because how many times are we expected to come down and suffer over and over and over again for a God who supposedly doesn't want suffering for us at all, right? We don't have to prove anything to an all-loving, omnipotent God.
Not impotent.
Omnipotent God. And I feel like this argument that we have free will is very tired, and it's actually an illusion, because one person's free will is completely up to another person's free will to match what that energy and those choices are and become. And if there is not a match there, then only one person has free will. So let's just give an example. I hate to bring up the fucking e-files, right? But you think all those victims said, oh, free will, you want to take me and you want to put me in a basement for 2 months or on an island and torture me, and well, I guess I have free will to say yes to that. No, somebody else's free will infringed upon yours, took away your free will, and said, you don't really have that right now. You may or may not get it back, but right now my free will is more important than yours, right? So to say that all of us have free will, and that all of us, if you're in a guise of a religion that tells you that your free will is strictly for the love of God in the end, well, let's ask these victims, some of whom didn't even make it past 6 years old, if that was a lesson, that being on the earth for 6 years of free will, was that a fulfilling enough mission to come here and be someone else's pleasure, trash, torture victim, whatever? Like, just tell me, like, honestly, can you really justify that in any God's name? And I just don't buy that. I don't buy that shit. This is not a free will world. And I think that the idea of true freedom is false, because we are stuck on a planet or a realm, and we do not have the answers fully. Nobody can prove what happens when we go over here. There are people that can say they can prove it because they have had an experience, but not everybody can say, I know for sure what happens next, and I know for sure how and why I got here, right? So this whole idea of, well, we have free will to just wander back to whatever concept, that needs an ego stroking. Oh, good child, you found me. You free willed yourself to me. Thank you for choosing me through the suffering. Come on. Like a rational mind, and you're a professor, right? And you're also heavily religiously educated, like I am, because I've studied a lot of religions over the years. How do you feel, Nick, about the idea of a God that must create certain conditions so that you're almost forced to choose the better of the suffering through something that we can't fully name or fully experience all the time. And it's just an invisible force that says, trust me, trust me. But given all of these human attributes, like this ego that needs to be soothed because, you chose me over the ladder, right? And with my newfound spirituality, I feel like it's my higher self is connected to the ultimate creator, and that is kind of who I answer to. And then this whole notion, like, through the Catholics, where it's like, oh, you can't go to God directly, you have to go through the chain of command, right? You have to talk to this one, and this one before we can actually go to the main guy, because he's too busy. So you're going to talk to the Virgin Mary and the saints, and through the
like I've said a million times, right? I was trained by Catholics to be a medium, even though they say I'm talking to the devil.
Right.
That's a whole other podcast. But as far as free will and religion, I would say in my mediumship practice, my belief is our soul has free will to choose the life, the outline. It's not absolute, right? Nobody's life is absolute. Our spirit, between lives, when we decide to incarnate again, we say, okay, I want to have a rest life. I want to have a pretty easy, mellow life, right? And you may be abducted by somebody and taken to an island. As a 6-year-old child, you don't have a choice in that. So that's not the child's free will. Their free will is infringed upon. That's true. So when you're asking about when you're stating, you don't believe free will is a thing, what are the parameters that what frame the parameters, right? What part of free will? Like, as a human woman in the United States, I used to have free will to have as many abortions as I wanted, depending on the state you were in. Some states had limits, right? You could go get 100 abortions in California, right? Or even in Florida, right? I'm not recommending that. I'm just using a very crazy example. Now in the United States, a woman doesn't have free will depending on the state she goes to, right? And women and men, the laws for men don't change from state to state, but the laws for women do. So let's think about that as far as free will. So free will can be infringed upon by someone else. So obviously a 6-year-old child who's being abducted and sent to where island has no choice in the matter. Now, did they decide that in their life between lives that they were going to live a life of horror? I don't know. I can't answer that. I doubt anybody would decide that, but right now, with everything going on, I'm questioning my entire reality. So maybe that 6-year-old child in a previous life was Adolf Hitler and said, okay, I need to pay for my crimes. This is my karma. So give me a life of horror. We can't answer that, right? We don't know from the spiritual side what is true, because we can't remember our lives between lives, me and you. Other people chime in the comments. Let us know, right? What have you experienced? What do you believe? What do you think free will is? As a human, my husband and I just had a talk about this a couple nights ago. He said there's this team of players who's being told they have to wear a certain symbol on their jersey. We had this whole long discussion. He goes, I don't think it's fair to force somebody to wear, let's say it's a logo from I don't want to say, but like a sports, like Nike or something. And what if somebody doesn't want to wear that? I said, well, they have a choice. They don't have to wear it. He goes, well, then they can't be on the team. And what if it ruins their career? I go, well, if you hate that logo so much that you would rather ruin your career, by saying, I can't play for this team because I can't wear that logo, that is your choice. You have a choice. Nobody is forcing you to wear that logo. You and this right now, who knows in the future what'll happen, but right now you can still choose in the United States to play for that team or not, and wear this logo or that logo. So you may ruin your career, but you still have choice.
Yeah. And I always say this in my plays, because my plays center always around these kinds of conundrums.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that because when you really look at everything, like you said, even down to the laws that are made about our bodies, right? That free will and your choices are very limited in many ways, right? Especially if you're a victim of circumstance where you got pregnant at a young age, you decided to keep the baby out of your morals, and you weren't quite ready to commit to that. And so you had to put like all of your dreams on hold, college on hold, all of your aspirations until you're, through with, child rearing and all of that, which happens a lot, honestly. Accidents happen, things happen. We fall in love with the wrong people. We fall in love with the right people, and then that just takes us on a different path. But maybe that's not a path that we would have chosen now or at the time. And so we just make the best of it, right? And so the way to empower ourselves going forward, or like if I were raising a child, and I would, like you, say to them constantly, listen, make as many choices as you can. Take advantage of the places in your life where you can choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many things you can't choose.
Mm-hmm.
Like today, our whole town, this whole tri-state area was completely shut down due to the snow, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were all of these stay-at-home orders. We couldn't
Mm-hmm.
be on the roads past, like from 9 p.m. last night until I think it was 3 p.m. today or something. And rightfully so. It was really bad out. Unless you're an essential worker, just don't go out. But
right.
It's, you can't help when Mother Nature is going to dump a bunch of snow on you, or there's a hurricane coming and we have to, go to higher ground. And then there's other people's free will with their choices infringing on you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we have to either get out of the way, make room for it, or compromise. And so between all of those other limitations, make choices, as many as you can, when you can, right? So important. Right. And so you're right. When it's out of your hands, the best thing to do is just surrender it and be the best you can, and then choose a good attitude about it. But like I said, there is a lot of things. And I think that if you ask anybody, including our listeners, which if y'all want to comment on this too, if you could choose 3 things over again, where you came into a crossroads and you thought, okay, I have choices here. And instead of carefully making the decision and taking the time to really evaluate your happiness level and what's best for everybody, you just kind of hastily jump in and make a decision, right? And then you knew that it was probably the wrong one, and you had regrets. I think everybody has a few regrets in life, right? Along the way, the main roads. And you and I can even bring up one of our, I can talk about one of my regrets, because, a lot of people want to say, as spiritual people, I don't have any regrets. Everything happened the way it was supposed to for a reason. But I also believe that everything happens for a reason. If we hadn't chosen the thing that we have the regret for, right? No matter what, we're on our path, but we are allowed to have regrets. It's okay to say, I would have chose differently.
Right.
And
I'm happy to share.
Yeah, go for it.
And I've said this many times publicly. If I had a wise person advising me that I trusted, which I didn't have any older, more intelligent, educated people advising me, I would have chosen to wait longer to get married. I would have chosen to heal more from my trauma before I did. I would have probably waited a few more years to have my kids, because I love my children. I love my husband, but I was woefully unprepared for the emotional stuff that comes with marriage, because I wasn't healed from my trauma from before I met my husband. And all of that, you bring all of your trauma with you into relationships. And I've told every single person, actually advised a woman over the weekend when I was traveling. She asked me a question and I advised her on this exact thing. We underestimate how much our trauma impacts our future relationships if we have not gone into a deep dive and understand that my childhood trauma is not what's happening, hopefully, in my relationship, right? Like you can have emotional transference from your childhood trauma into your relationship. You can misinterpret something that's happening in your relationship and be triggered by something that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago and put that on the person in the relationship. And the person in the relationship's like, what is happening? That is not what's happening. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think that's probably happened to every woman I know.
Yeah. I also have, my biggest regret is also getting into one of the most unhealthy relationships I've ever been in. And I knew it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know it and you still choose it, I used to kick myself all the time. You lived through that. I'm not going to say the name, but you lived through that.
Yeah, I
And
lived through the many iterations.
it was such an addiction, right? Because it's the NRE, it's the stupid chemistry, right? It's the pheromone, like somebody I was super attracted to, but I knew it was completely wrong for me in every way. And every time I chose to hang out with him, I just thought, this is the wrong thing to choose. LS, this is like, don't do it. And, sometimes I would, and sometimes I wouldn't. I would be reasonable sometimes. And then the thing is, with men and relationships like we had, when I did say no, right? You know what happens? Somebody comes back harder at you. They want you more. So he made it really hard for me to say no when I would say no. And he would work twice as hard to seduce me back into the situation. But honestly, if I looked at my life going back, people could say all day long, oh, you learned so much from him. No, honestly, I already had a sense of who I was. I knew who I was. I knew who I was going to be. In fact, I was a worse version of myself with him because I edited myself around him. And I edited what I said, what I did, how I acted. It was opposite of my authentic self. Mm-hmm. And I hated living in that cage. I absolutely hated it. But to keep the peace, I had to do that. And I thought, this isn't worth it for some hot sex. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
And I did this on and off for 4 years. And I'm just thinking over and over, even when I was in it, I have these journals and diary notes that I took. Because then it was, you didn't have the internet. You had to just write shit out to vent your shit.
On paper with a pen. So for the younger viewers, we use paper and pen.
Right. So I just wrote it out and got it out and talked to my friends and vented to them when I could. And man, I have all those still. And I just think, look at how much strife this person, how much energy they took from me. And I didn't need to give that to them. Sure, I changed their life temporarily by taking care of them and loving them, because this is somebody who was very broken and had never really been loved fully before. And to this day, this guy will tell me, no one ever loved me like you did. And I'm sorry for that. But you, after all this time, couldn't figure out how to maybe give that back to somebody else and go find a way to return that favor? No. And this is why we were never compatible, because he wasn't willing to ever grow or get sober or do things that were for the good of himself or humanity, but wanted to parrot the whole religious shit. Again, well, God doesn't want that, doesn't want this, but God doesn't want you wasting your life. And he wasn't one of those arrogant addicts. He was one of those soft, lovable, victim type addicts, that you feel sorry for rather than
a covert narcissist.
Yes. And he wasn't he never hurt me in any way physically. There wasn't even really emotional abuse. We were just severely incompatible in every way, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. And it was just a total prison cage for me. And there was no reason for me to have put myself like through that, because I was already the self-evolved person that I was, other than my own fucking weakness. My own fucking weakness is what kept me in that spot. It's called bad choices. It's called I was addicted to the chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And straight up, it was my own doing. And I blame no one but myself in that.
That was your free will.
That's right.
And I would
free will.
say, yeah, I would say to that person,
even though it was not for the best of myself.
right, because you made the choice.
Yeah. Over and over again, son.
Yeah. As we all have those relationships in our past that are like, oh my God, why did I do that? I would say to that person and anyone else who's struggling with religious indoctrination or childhood trauma, the trauma that was inflicted upon you by your family or by your religion, which there's a lot of religious trauma going on, and family trauma, of course, and most of the time they're kind of combined. That was the parents and the religion's responsibility then. But now that you're an adult, your healing is your responsibility. Blaming your parents into your 50s and 60s and 70s, even in the 40s, like 20s angst is normal. You're still blaming your parents. 30s, you're still hanging on a little. By the time you hit 40, get your shit together. It's time to figure it out. I mean, I would say hopefully by the time you're 30, but give a little grace to people, because we have to take accountability for our own healing. Once you're an adult, it's your responsibility. Figure it out. The internet is full of resources, and I'm not talking about joining a cult, which is where a lot of people end up, as we know. That's why we're in this position in our country that we're in right now. A lot of people listen to podcasts that are sucking them in with all kinds of promises of be on our team. And then they're like, now we have this crazy stuff happening to give us a false sense of freedom, which is one of our other subjects for tonight. There's a lot of, I'm just looking at my notes here, a lot of misinformation that is believed by people who are willfully ignorant, to give them this freedom. We're free. We live in a free country, and all the freedom shirts. And it's like, you are supporting a man that is mentioned in the files that we know of 38,000 times in the e-files. And Representative Ted Luce stated on camera unequivocally, I saw the unredacted files, and Schmesident Schmump was graping children. Said it out loud on television, and every single one of them should be saying it every single day until he's arrested, and all of them are arrested. Not one of them has been held accountable, not to mention all of the other people that are famous that are in there.
Agreed.
Throwing it to you, Lady Shadowe.
So funny because, oh, did you see Bailey popping up?
Mm-hmm.
Want to say hi, Bubba?
She's coming for support.
This is my baby.
She knows it's getting wild over here.
She does. It's a wild party when we get on together. Yeah, it's the idea again that free will is a highly subjective situation. Yes.
She agrees.
And we also forget that, yeah, freedom, but there are still consequences to that freedom, right? So if you want to go and you want to shout out some slurs about a group of people, yeah, you're free to do that, but you're also free to receive the consequences of your behaviors.
Right.
Right. So we need to remember that, for one.
Mhm. There's not freedom from consequences.
Exactly.
Freedom of speech, supposedly for now.
For now.
But there are consequences to, like, if we threaten someone, we'd have consequences, right?
Right. Even if it's just chatter, just talk, just joking around.
Still a consequence.
Right. And it's also interesting how certain freedoms don't go for certain people. You know, the rules apply to me, not to thee, kind of thing. So,
like the rich white men billionaires, the patriarchy. That's another thing I have on my list to talk about.
That's it. Talking about that. We're talking about that among all the other levels of corruption that go, even the idea that plea bargaining, you go in, right, to a situation that's a legal matter, and if you know you're innocent, but you're going to get a lesser sentence if you literally lie when you're on oath and you promise, I'm not going to lie about the situation. Does that make any fucking sense to anyone? No. That you're punished for telling the truth, and you're going to get a lighter sentence if you go in and you are going to answer in a manipulated way while swearing to tell the truth. Okay, that shit doesn't fly with me either. Don't even get me started on the corrupt way that the law works around things, which is really only built for the rich people to get around certain things. Let's be honest about that.
As we are seeing now,
we are seeing right now. But again, back to personal responsibility and what you were saying about how there comes to be a certain time, and I didn't even wait till my 40s to take responsibility and get the hell out of my house early on and say, I'm going to start making my own decisions, even if they're bad ones in this bad relationship. I'm still going to take parts of my life and make good decisions and go find myself and take responsibility for who I am and becoming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in our lives, since we don't, again, have control over our own system, our own leaders, taking accountability, that it starts with us again, and the butterfly effect of you and I talking about it, you all in the comments talking about it,
right?
You all hearing something that may be inspirational that we're talking about that helps someone else make better choices, different choices, or finally make the choice that they've always wanted to make, the way you made your choice to go into business for yourself, the way I made my choice to come to New York, start a company, and never work in a restaurant or bar again. And so it's not just the bigger choices, but it's the everyday ones. It's the little ones every day that make a commitment to ourselves, that show self-love, that show self-care. And a lot of times, like you said, in this world of distractions and, parents who've got young children, it's so hard to make time for yourselves, for your relationship, because now you're a mom and you're doing 80,000 other things that come before you and your choices, right?
Yes.
So free will is something that is not just a headline being thrown around, not just a religious concept, not just the bigger standard that we should apply to what we can and do empower ourselves, to enable a life that's fulfilling. But that is the whole point, is that to see the world however you see it. But if you say to yourself, but it's my choice, I own it, I can choose differently. And we always talk about the stage, right? Because I'm, of course, a theater person, so it's easy for me to use this metaphor. But if you don't like what's on your stage, change the set.
Right.
If there's too much shit on your stage, or you don't like the color of the sets, paint it,
Right.
Just take it all off. What's on your stage is what you have put there, right? It's your stage. Your life is your stage, and you get to decide who's in it, what's on it, how much clutter there is, what color everything is. And
I have a question for you about that.
Yeah, of course.
So I have a friend who is really miserable at their job. Like, it's a very toxic place. And this person is applying for jobs, but only certain kinds of jobs, right? And it's like, it's a little frustrating, because you're like, but you could do these other 200 other things. what would you say to someone that you cared about deeply who was miserable at their job that they're tied to? They feel like they're, tied to it permanently. How would you advise somebody about the free will, the fate, and the false freedom if they're wanting to leave a job but a little scared, or I don't really know what the problem is, but what would you say? Right, there's a lot of people in this situation. That's why I'm asking
Of
this.
course.
But
I
it
watched
is
my husband go through this because
someone.
he goes through periods where he works different jobs or through different companies in the same sector over the years. And what I used to tell him is that your job is not death. Your job is not life. Okay. I always used to tell my husband that the only two things worth getting a ripple in your nervous system for is fucking courts and fucking hospitals. Everything else, so it doesn't have to do with a court or hospital, is fixable, is doable, is let goable, is unfuckwithable, right? Like you can just relax out of that. If you've got your health, you're good. If you don't have any legal shit that's going to take away your freedom, right? You're good. So I always said to Chris, you can always remind yourself throughout the day as you're going through this job that you hate, that you are choosing both to be there and you can choose not to be there. So at any given time, you go in and you're going to say, if you know that it's something that you can't leave yet, I used to say to him, go in there and just say to yourself, I don't have to be here. I'm choosing to be here right now. For today, right now, I'm going to get through it. But I have the choice. I could walk right out that door. There it is. And I don't have to come back here.
Mm-hmm.
And just the idea of knowing that he has another alternative choice, that at any time he can say, I'm not doing this anymore, that he can do that. He can enact that power at any time. Now, if fear or financial obligation or other things come before that, before the risk reward, based on the consequence of leaving one thing and not having another, he has to evaluate that as the day goes on, but he still has the choice, because there are people that can walk out of a job tomorrow, not have any money in the bank, get a job the next day or within a few days. It happens all the time.
It happened to me 1,000 times.
Yes.
I quit jobs left and right, and I didn't care before
Me too.
before I was in education.
Yeah.
I was like, there's another job.
Right.
I was just, there's another job. It's no big deal. I know there's another job.
There's an abundance of jobs.
There's always an abundance of jobs.
And
now it's a little different now for when you're middle-aged, and it's a different story. But when you're 25 and that's different.
Well, and it also depends on your education and your expectation level. So if your friend is somebody who is highly educated and is looking for $120,000 a year salary because their expectations with their education is going to be this much, well, then you can't just walk into a Home Depot and say, hey, can you hire me with the same salary?
Oh, right. This person's not looking for Home Depot job.
Right, exactly. So if it's something more specialized, then you might have to trick your brain, for the risk reward benefit of staying long enough to keep your bills paid until you can move into something else. Or sometimes some people get more motivated if they actually quit first and then balls to the wall, find something. Finding a job is a job itself, is a full-time thing itself. Is you don't just send a resume or two and call it a day.
Right.
Like when I used to find look for good jobs, it would be all day combing through.
It takes a really long time
to
especially in this day and age of digital resumes. Yeah.
Right.
And they have AI looking through those. But what would you say to somebody with limited belief systems that is going through this? Because I think that's a big part of the problem and this, it's pertinent to what we're talking about because so many people are going through this right now.
Yeah.
Limiting belief systems. How would you address that? Like, how would you advise somebody with I'm not good enough. I don't think I can. I'm afraid, because it's fear. I think it's fear.
Yes. Yes, it's your own filters. It's your own limitations. Limitations only exist if you create them and put them on yourself, right? Again, it's your stage. Clear your stage. Clear your mind. If you went into a little 10-minute meditation and just strip off all of the labels that people have put on you all day, you're this, you're that.
This person's been given labels their whole life.
Exactly. So they need to recenter, strip the labels off, and just go back to what we always talk about, the frequency, our love frequency, our higher self frequency.
Gratitude.
Right. High vibrating joy. Okay. And if you strip everything else away, the joy will lead you to more joy. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you're stuck in the labels and you want to believe your labels, listen, that looping behavior, you can stop it. But if you choose not to stop it and you want to keep looping it for whatever reason, to call yourself a victim, if you want to hold on to old beliefs because, again, you're afraid to move forward, then you're not going to move forward until you're ready. You are the one ultimately who has to break the loops, or you have to seek out ways to actively find an actual solution to apply to that, which would be like listening to a podcast, reading a book, seeking out an answer to the solution. And if you're not willing to look at the answer to the solution, then you're going to be stuck in your loop. For sure.
And that is true whether you're looking for a job or any other part of your life, being stuck in the loop, being stuck in the belief system of I can't. And I think that's something about, there's certain people who are very much like, I can do anything and I'm going to do anything. And I'm one of those people. Like, I have most of it. Now, I'm not saying every day I wake up, I can do anything. Not every day is like that. But for the most part, my belief system is I can accomplish anything, limitless options. I just realized the other day, someone said, you can retire in 7 years. I'm like, I'm not even thinking about that. I have like 1,000 more careers to get through.
Exactly.
I am not even close to thinking about slowing down my career trajectory at all. But then there are people who no one's ever believed in them. No one's ever lifted them up and said, encouraged them in a positive way. People have been told, you can't, you shouldn't, you wouldn't, you couldn't, blah, blah, blah. But I think part of this is an innate belief system about ourselves. I think different people are programmed differently to fall into the false freedom, to fall into the, I'm not good, to fall into all of these belief systems that are not true. Some people are just programmed to be vulnerable to that. And then there are other people who are programmed genetically, astrologically, spiritually. I don't really know, probably a combination of things that are like, no, that's not going to be me. When I was 15 years old, right before my mom died, we were extremely poor and destitute, food stamps, underfed, very poor, blah, blah, blah. Not a good situation. And my sisters had to work from the time they could get a job. I mean, I'm talking like my one sister counted 99 pennies one day. That was her tips for her whole shift of her job at 15 years old. I was working for $1.25 an hour washing dishes. Like, this is the 80s in a small town. And I remember my mom saying, you're going to work to help support the family. And I said, I am going to go to college. And in no way, shape, or form, where I was living with my mother in this small town in Missouri, would I have ever been able to go to college. Yep. Absolutely no way. There was no money, literally nothing. There was no way I could have gone to college. And then a few months later, she died. And then I moved to California with my dad, where he was with his new family. And he didn't pay for my college. But because I was in a bigger city, there were more job opportunities, so I could pay for my own college. But that was never going to leave my mind. I was not going to end up being this poor, destitute woman, pumping out 5 or 6 kids to be dependent on someone else or to just be poor and miserable. That was not going to be my story. And it comes with a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, and believing in yourself and circumstances changing. My circumstance changed because my mother died. Had that not happened, I have no idea what would have happened to me. So I think there's a combination of factors for each of us when it comes to free will, when it comes to fate, when it comes to all of these things. Certain things have to fall in place, but you have to believe in yourself that you can accomplish anything, and you have to do the work, and you have to really see it and believe it most of the time. Not everybody has good days all the time, right? You and I have had a million conversations. We're not always having a good day. More good days than not good days. But I think there's a combination of things, but I think there's an innate piece of us, people who are like, no, this is not going to be my future, or this is going to be my future.
Yeah. And I also think that the minute somebody stops to think about it for a second, instead of just, no, I have no choice. Don't even talk to me about it. Nope, I can't. Don't tell me to quit. Don't tell me there's something else, because there isn't. I can't. You know those people,
Yeah.
right? Everyone knows one of the I can't Karens, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
The minute that someone can get out of that loop and actually say to another human being or to themselves, I see other people doing it. I see and feel how I see and feel myself when things don't feel good or feel right. And I've also proven to myself in the past, because you can look back at your own patterns, right? And say, What did I do last time I was in the situation? How did I even find this job? How did I get out of that other situation so seamlessly to get this situation, which I no longer like, but I could keep upgrading, right? So look at your past patterns and say, wherever you are in life, I don't know how old your friend is, but tell them to look back at the last 20 years and say, look at what you've done in the last 20 years. You've proven that you can solve problems. You've proven that you can talk about what you don't want. You can voice what you do want. So stop talking about what you don't want and talk more about what you do want and what you're capable of getting and finding, right?
Right.
So if you just trick your brain into at least just starting the process, I'm going to believe today that there's a solution to my issue, that there's a job out there that I want that's better than this, because the universe does not want me to be miserable, which
makes everybody else around you miserable.
Right. But let's remember the system. The system wants you miserable, but not not your highest self. Okay. Right. Don't get stuck in this system looping bullshit, because the system is here to keep you in fear. The only thing that's not keeping you there is right here in your connection to your higher self, your oversoul, to whatever you want to call God.
Right.
So if you continue to feed not the loop, but your higher self's desires, even if you just start thinking about it, just entertain it, even if you can't say it out loud to a friend, but you can think it or write it down, that is a start to just like when you're in a 12-step program, right? What's the first step? Admitting that you're powerless. Yeah. You don't have to admit it to 80 people. You don't have to call all your friends and admit it to them. You could literally just say to yourself, I am powerless in the situation. I need to change it. I don't know how. And then ask your higher self to kind of come through with inspiration ideas. But your higher self cannot come through the system's filters of fear here unless you ask and fucking listen. You got to listen for those answers. And people have a really hard time listening, because in this world, everyone wants to talk and get their shit out, because there's so much diarrhea in the world that we have to let it out, but we forget to stop, shut the fuck up and listen.
Right.
Listening for our higher selves, we get guidance pretty quickly. And then when we're listening to the guidance, suddenly things are showing up around you quicker than you could ever imagine.
I absolutely love every single word of that, because absolutely it's 100% true. And I've lived that. When I got fired, I laugh. People think I was upset about getting fired from that job. It was the happiest moment of my life professionally. Like, I would have never let go of a job security, but that place was so horrible and so toxic that I was like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. It was spirit telling me, bitch, get out of this job. You need to be a medium full time. Why are you still here, locked in this toxic place that's sucking out of all of your energy? And so, and since then, I've manifested several streams of income from a variety of different places. And now I'm so busy, I don't know what way's up anymore. Right. And because I have a belief system that is yes, 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 check mark, check mark, check
Me
mark, check
too.
mark. Right. And not everybody has that. Yeah. You and I are the same that way. We always, ever since we've known each other, we've been on that trajectory of we're going to work it out. We're going to have a job. We're going to have income. Everything's going to be great. You know, but not everybody has that. And that's what I was saying. It's innate. I think we were both born with that.
Yeah.
And not everybody is.
I think didn't we cover this in another podcast where I talked about being 6 years old and already running companies and like having a checking account and a PO box at a very young age.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
6 or 16.
Yeah, well, that was the checking account, but at 6, I was already writing and selling like my art to like the family.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I thought I misheard. I thought I misheard what you said. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at 6 I didn't have a checking account, but at 6 I was already doing entrepreneurial type of.
Right.
Yeah,
I
and thinking that way. But you're right. I think but I mean, even if you didn't come out this way, that doesn't mean you can't learn your way to it as you get older, right? There's no way that just because you wasn't born in an innate in you that you can't just learn it, start over, and develop it.
Exactly.
Right? There's a lot of late bloomers in this world.
Yes.
I have a really good friend who is working in nursing her whole life, and she really wanted to get into acting, and she had 2 kids and busted her ass and ended up being a single mom through part of it. And she said, I really, really want to get into acting, but like, is it even a thing? Like, I'm 50 something now. And I said, girl, look at Edith Bunker. She went in when she was 62 or something like that. And then the height of her career happened when she was in her 60s with All in the Family. And so it's never too late. You're right on time, no matter where you think you are in life. Some people will hit when they're in their 20s and then fall flat for the rest of their lives. And others will be falling flat until they're 50 or 62 and hitting it big at whatever age it is. Listen, it's different for everyone. We have to just appreciate our own journey, put the blinders on, and not compare ourselves, not judge ourselves. We are on our own path. We are in our own lane of free will, the best that we can exercise it. And we need not to worry about what anyone else is doing and just focus on what we need to do. And hopefully it's a joyous journey in the end. And like you said, it's not to the point where when the blinders are so hard on, that you're suffering because that person's miserable because they don't know how to not see anything other than the blinders, right? So that can also be a two-way sword, is that you also want to be cognizant of how you're treating the people around you while you're out trying to find yourself and make things better. But it's got to start with one little step, one little crack, light coming in. And that's how you break the fucking loop, is like that little crack of light. Stop and listen and really pay attention. Get rid of the noise, get quiet for a couple of minutes, and you will start to get even small answers. And you'll also get little peaceful points throughout your day in the job that you hate that much, because you'll start to pull your power back. And every time you remind yourself, even if you wear a rubber band on your wrist and you're feeling like self-deprecating thoughts, just give it a snap and snap back into, hey, I'm choosing this. I don't have to choose this if I don't want to. So yes, make choices.
You said something about it can be learned, and that is so true. And people have to unlearn the programming that
Yes.
made them not believe in themselves in the first place. There's a lot of this is because people don't believe in themselves because of trauma and families and friends, and toxic friends can be just as dangerous as toxic family members, right?
Oh,
Like
100%.
friends who want to pretend I have a very wonderful loved one who has a toxic friend she had to break up with because she was she was abusing her mentally at 50 years old. They were both in their 50s and she was like being, super toxic. And it's like, yeah, you got to get rid of friends like that. Like you can't let your toxic friend, because the toxic friend's mom was a narcissist. So she became a narcissist. So she, the whole loop. So yeah, you can unlearn the programming and learn how to reprogram yourself into your own fate. Make your own fate. And we all are capable, within reason, of course. It's not like everybody's going to be a billionaire, then a gallon of milk is going to cost $1 million, right? Like we have to be reasonable with these things. It's not going to happen overnight in most cases.
Yep. You got this, girl. Learn, unlearn, and just everyone out there who's in a rut like your friends, just know that it doesn't take months and weeks and years. I always use this quick analogy that when you go to the chiropractor, you've got really bad back pain. When a chiropractor adjusts your spine, you're talking millimeters, okay?
Yeah.
And when someone adjusts the spine just a few millimeters, everything changes. It's a small amount, but everything changes on the big side of the pain, right? Just a tiny adjustment. When you make a tiny adjustment, shift your thoughts, change your beliefs, just make a conscious effort to maybe not stop the loop, but to be cognizant of stopping the loop. That can have huge repercussions, come a lot quicker than you think. And knowing that can happen faster in the moment also gives you hope to keep going. Like weight loss, right? It's like, even though you can't see it, that 1/4 of a pound is coming off every day. At the end of the week, you're 3 pounds down. It's like, whoa, cumulatively, this is actually working.
Right.
Yeah? Just think of it like that.
Yeah. It's a realignment. You have to realign your spine and realign your mind. And on that note, thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Soul Twin Stars podcast as we talk about free will, fate, and false freedom today. Like, share, and subscribe on all of our platforms. Lady Shadowe, it's been lovely chatting again. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much for joining us this episode for the Soul Twin Stars podcast. Find us on our podcast Facebook page for Magical Mondays live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where we will help you magically slay your weekdays, and for awesome giveaways. For more information about what other spiritual things Nik and I do and offer, visit peacefulnikthemedium.com. That's Nik with just a K. Or to connect with me, Lady Shadowe, soulsandspirits.com is the place to go. If you want to be a guest on one of our shows, we would absolutely love that. Contact us at soultwinstars@gmail.com. See you next Friday on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Facebook, and on YouTube. Sending you all so many blessings. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, know that you are all cherished.